So after you come around the corner, the next piece in the show, entitled Primer, is a series of wax crayons. This deals directly with the psychological damage, the same as Fallout, the pictures from the Saddam Hussein International Center. These crayons deal with the psychological damage that happens to children. Originally, my proposal for the Archetype Gallery was dealing with Palestinian children in the West Bank and their drawings that they create after living in occupation for all of their life. Due to complications, of course, definitely with getting artwork from the West Bank, that had to be sidelined for now. But this was a direct response to what they were going through, what they were drawing, the images that were coming out of West Bank, images of occupation, but also how that correlates with children in countries at war, countries of occupation, where countries like China, countries like Mexico, countries like Iraq are trying to actually ban toy guns because after living in these dramatic and harsh conditions, they're more easily able to pick up these guns. And by removing that element from their life, they feel that it might make a change as they become adults or later in their teen years as well too, and just the comfortableness of picking up a gun, to use a gun. And so we can see that war effects or just violence at that scale of daily life can dramatically affect how children see the world, how they view the world, their opportunities in life. And so these are usable crayons. And so just giving an example of that and combining that with an older work of mine, which is actually a manual that was passed out in Nicaragua during the 1980s for people who might oppose the socialist government there, and turning that into a coloring book. So this work is entitled YouTube War. It is actually a collection of YouTube videos posted by soldiers from unmanned aerial vehicles or drones that are used significantly throughout Iraq, Afghanistan, and Pakistan. These were the same ones that were used to monitor Osama bin Laden and are continuing to be used out as far as assassination tactics. But what it is doing is removing soldiers from the battlefield, and therefore trying to reduce their proximity to war, their closeness to that danger, that harm, and setting up a war that is more like a video game. And so the soundtrack that's overlaid within this is used to heighten that climax of war porn from the drones. It is also used to relate it back to what is it doing? It's creating a video game-like feel of war. And so the soundtrack is actually from Call of Duty, which is one of the more popular games for US soldiers to play. And so trying to remove the actuality, the feeling, the response to war, and the problems that come with that, of course, too, that life becomes less important. It's a video game. So one of the last pieces is entitled Free Market Democracy. As I developed my work, it started off with dealing with war, all right? Especially U.S. Use of war, invasions, CIA actions, and that developed into what was pushing these things. What was the true nature of this? And what I found in my research, my study, was that we are often using war to push economics, to push an economic system. And this continued to come up as I looked at the use of debt, the use of political power, the use of economic power, the use of military power, that it all came back to the ability to push for economic change of a system. So allowing American or Western companies, corporations to come in and have better access to developing nations' countries. And what that usually meant was it started off with small deals, such as we will loan you this money to develop your country, which often most of goes into corruption. But within that, you have to allow our corporations to come in. All right? Not just talking about McDonald's, but energy companies, construction, rebuilding companies, development companies. And so this piece is directly dealing with that, in that the real true push of our democracy is really the push of a free market economy, and that democracy becomes just the cover. And so the piece is a logo that I designed, taking, of course, the text of greenbacks, the American dollar, and putting that with free market democracy, creating a series of promotional business items that might be handed out to push or advocate for a company, but instead advocating for a cause. And the last piece in the show is called Shock and Awe. It's dealing directly with the historical destruction of Iraq. Iraq is actually what is considered a birthplace of Western civilization. It is believed that it had the first agricultural system, maybe even the first writing system, among other things. But during our invasion, our occupation of Iraq, Americans were responsible for vandalism and destruction of ancient cities, of main heritage and archaeological sites. The National Museum of Iraq was looted in the immediate aftermath of the invasion and removal of Saddam. And so while soldiers were stationed to protect the Ministry of Oil, the National Museum of Iraq was left open and looted of thousands of artifacts that were then placed on eBay, taken back home by soldiers and others. But more importantly, just those thousands of historical facts and connections that we have to past civilizations were lost. And so dealing with that vandalism, using graffiti, using spray paint, giving the audience a direct quote from an MSNBC News report stating that after the 2003 invasion of Iraq, U.S. Marines built a helicopter pad on the ruins of Babylon and filled their sandbags with archaeological fragments from the ancient city.